Life can feel like a race you never signed up for. One moment you're fine. The next you're juggling a dozen worries, trying to hold yourself together while pretending it's all okay. But maybe, just maybe, it's time to slow down, to take a breath, to stop fighting yourself and start being on your own side. Because the truth is, peace doesn't come from having everything figured out. It comes from learning how to treat yourself with a little more kindness. If that message speaks to your heart, take a moment to subscribe, stay with me, and let's walk through this together. There's something gentle about the idea of being your own friend. Think about it for a second. How often do you talk to yourself with the same warmth you give someone you love? Most of us don't. We're quick to forgive others, yet we hold ourselves to impossible standards. We replay mistakes like broken records, whispering, "You should have done better." I know that voice well. I've heard it too. Buddhist wisdom says that the words we use, even the ones we never speak aloud, shape the way we see ourselves. And that's true. When I started paying attention to my inner voice, I realized I was my own worst critic. I would mess up something small, and suddenly I was labeling myself as a failure. But one day, I caught that thought mid-sentence. I asked myself, would I ever say this to a friend? The answer was no. So I tried something new. I whispered instead, "Hey, it's okay. You're learning." And something inside me softened. Maybe that's what self-compassion really is. Remembering that we're human, that we all make mistakes, fall short, get tired, and it's okay. You don't have to have it all together to be worthy of your own kindness. The Buddha once taught about right speech, not just in how we talk to others, but in how we talk to ourselves. Every thought, every quiet word inside your mind becomes part of the way you experience the world. So, maybe tonight, before you go to bed, notice the way you speak to yourself. When you catch that harsh voice, pause. Take a breath. Then gently shift the tone. You don't need fancy affirmations or perfect mantras. Sometimes it's enough to say, "I'm trying," and that's enough for today. When I first began meditating, I thought I was supposed to empty my mind. But I learned it's really about making space for yourself, to sit quietly with who you are without judgment. Try it for just 5 minutes. Sit still, breathe, and if your thoughts wander, let them. Just keep coming back, like returning home after a long day. That small act is how self-compassion starts to bloom. There's a story I once heard about a man who visited a Zen master, complaining that he couldn't find peace because his mind was always restless. The master poured him a cup of tea, but kept pouring even as it overflowed. "Your mind," he said, "is like this cup, too full. Empty it first, and then peace can fill it." I think self-compassion works the same way. We can't pour kindness into ourselves if we're already full of self-criticism. We need to empty the blame, the guilt, the old stories that tell us we're not enough. Maybe you grew up thinking that being tough on yourself meant being strong. But strength doesn't come from self-punishment. It comes from self-trust. When you start showing yourself patience and understanding, you build an inner safety that no storm can shake. You begin to see that every mistake was just a step, not a failure. Every struggle was a teacher in disguise. So, the next time you catch yourself saying, "I can't believe I messed that up again," try replacing it with, "I'm learning something here." The shift might feel small, almost too small to matter, but over time, it changes everything. Because your mind starts to believe the new story, that you are capable, that you are enough, that you deserve gentleness. And listen, it's okay if you forget sometimes. We all do. The goal isn't to be perfectly kind to yourself every day. It's to notice when you've drifted and come back, to start over again and again, like waves returning to the shore. I want you to think of someone who's been through a lot, someone who still stands, still tries. That's you. You've carried yourself through every hard day you thought you couldn't survive. You've shown up when it was easier to give up, and that deserves kindness. Being gentle with yourself doesn't mean ignoring growth. It means you grow from love, not fear. You fix what you can while still holding compassion for what you can't. And little by little, that compassion turns into quiet confidence, a kind of peace that doesn't depend on circumstances, but lives within you. So tonight or tomorrow morning, whisper something kind to yourself. It can be as simple as, "I'm proud of you," or "You did your best." Say it even if it feels strange at first. Say it until it starts to feel true. And if this message spoke to you, if some part of you is tired of being your own enemy and ready to become your own friend, then I invite you to subscribe, stay close, and grow with me. Every week, we share reflections like this. Quiet moments that remind you you're not alone, that peace isn't somewhere far away. It's right here, waiting inside you, whispering, "It's okay." Have you ever paused long enough to really listen to your body? Not the thought about it, not the judgments or the comparisons, but the quiet, honest messages it's been trying to tell you all along? Maybe it's been whispering that it's tired, that it needs rest, or that it just wants a little kindness from you. Our bodies carry so much. Every story, every tear, every laugh. And yet, most of the time, we treat them like machines. But your body is not a project to be fixed. It's a home to be cared for. If this feels like something your heart needs to hear, take a deep breath with me. And if you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button. Let's walk through this together, one gentle breath at a time. There's something sacred about realizing that your body has been on your side all along. From the moment you were born, it has carried you through everything, through sleepless nights, heartbreaks, and every beautiful sunrise you've ever seen. It never asked for perfection. It just asked for attention, for care, for a little gratitude. And maybe that's something we forget too easily in this fast world that keeps telling us to do more, to be more, to look better. But the truth is, your body is already doing something miraculous. It's keeping you alive. Sometimes I like to sit quietly and thank my body, not in a big ceremonial way, but just softly. I'll close my eyes and think, "Thank you, heart, for beating even when I'm tired. Thank you, lungs, for every breath I've taken for granted. Thank you, feet, for carrying me even when I didn't know where I was going." Maybe it sounds simple, but that small act of gratitude changes something inside. It reminds me that this body is my enemy. It's my oldest friend. I used to be so hard on it, always wishing it looked different, moved faster, did more. But one day, after a long illness, I realized how fragile and precious it really was. I remember lying there, feeling weak and thinking, I've spent so many years criticizing this body, and yet here it is, still fighting for me. That was the moment I began to understand what it means to honor the body, not as an object, but as a temple that holds my life. The Buddha taught that mindfulness begins with the body. Before we can calm the mind, we must come home to the body. That means being present with how it feels, without judgment. When you eat, truly taste. When you walk, feel your feet touching the earth. When you're tired, rest without guilt. Each of these small acts is a way of saying, I honor this body that carries me. We live in a culture that worships appearance but forgets essence. We're told to chase youth, to hide wrinkles, to measure our worth in numbers, weight, size, years. But every line on your face, every scar on your skin is proof that you've lived, that you survived, that you felt deeply. There's beauty in that kind of truth, the kind that no filter can touch. So maybe it's time to stop fighting your reflection, to look in the mirror not with criticism, but with compassion. Try whispering to yourself, "Thank you for being here." You don't have to love every part right away. Just start with gratitude. Gratitude softens the harsh edges. It helps you see your body not as something perfect, but as something to cherish. I once heard a monk say, "When you care for your body, you are caring for your spirit." And I think that's true. When you eat nourishing food, when you stretch, rest, breathe, those aren't small things. They're acts of love. Every sip of water, every slow walk, every moment you choose calm over chaos. These are quiet prayers of gratitude for being alive. And maybe that's what we've been missing all along. We wait for big moments of awakening, but peace often shows up in the smallest gestures. The warm sunlight on your skin, the deep sigh after a long day, the stillness right before sleep. These are the ways the body speaks. If your body could talk right now, what would it say? Maybe it would whisper, "Thank you for noticing me." Maybe it would ask you to slow down, to breathe deeper, to rest without feeling guilty. Maybe it just wants you to know that it's doing its best for you. The next time you stretch in the morning or feel the weight of your body on the bed at night, remember this. You are not separate from your body. It's not just something you live in. It's something you live as. It's a vessel that lets your soul experience this world. Honor it. Treat it kindly. So tonight, when you wash your hands, when you brush your hair, when you take that deep breath before sleep, let those be your rituals of gratitude. Because honoring your body is not about self-indulgence. It's about self-respect. It's a way of saying, "I am here and that's enough." And if these words touched you, if you felt that quiet reminder inside your chest, then stay with me. Subscribe if you haven't. Together, we'll keep learning how to live more gently, love more deeply, and treat every breath as a gift. Because maybe peace isn't something we find. Maybe it's something that's been living in our bodies all along, just waiting for us to listen. You know, sometimes it's not the way of the world that breaks us. It's the way we hold it. We clutch old memories, carry grudges, replay conversations we can't change. We tell ourselves we've moved on, but deep inside, we're still holding on to what hurt us. And maybe it's time to let it go, not because they deserve forgiveness, but because you deserve peace. If you ever felt tired from carrying too much, if your heart feels heavy for reasons you can't quite name, stay with me. Take a deep breath. And if you haven't yet, subscribe so we can walk this quiet path of release together. There's a story I once heard about a monk and his student who were traveling together. They came to a river and saw a woman struggling to cross. The monk lifted her onto his shoulders and carried her across. Hours later, as they continued their journey, the student said, "Master, why did you carry that woman? We're not supposed to touch women." The monk smiled gently and said, "I put her down hours ago. Why are you still carrying her?" That story stayed with me. Because how many times have we done the same thing? We put the situation down in the world, but keep carrying it in our hearts. We replay what was said, what was lost, what should have been different. And every time we do, we pick up the same old stone again. Letting go doesn't mean erasing the past. It means making peace with it. It means saying, yes, it happened. Yes, it hurt. But I'm ready to stop letting it define me. Because the truth is, the more we hold on, the less space we have for new light to enter. You can't open your hands to receive something new if they're still holding the old. I used to think forgiveness was about the other person, about excusing what they did. But now I know it's really about freeing yourself. Forgiveness isn't saying, it's okay. It's saying, I won't let this control me anymore. It's choosing to release the pain so you can breathe again. And sometimes that forgiveness has to start with yourself. Maybe you're still blaming yourself for something you did years ago, for a choice you made when you didn't know better. Maybe you keep replaying that moment, wishing you could rewrite it. But here's the thing. You can't grow if you keep punishing the person you used to be. You can only thank them for surviving, for trying, for doing the best they could with what they knew. It's okay to put it down now. It's okay to stop carrying it. In Buddhist wisdom, there's a phrase that means empty the boat. It's a reminder that when we let go of what weighs us down, our pride, our anger, our regret, we begin to float again. Life becomes lighter. And suddenly, the same world that once felt heavy begins to feel spacious, open, full of possibility. Sometimes, what we need to release isn't even about someone else. It's about an identity we've outgrown, a version of ourselves that no longer fits. We hold on to it because it's familiar, even if it hurts. But maybe life keeps trying to whisper, you don't have to be who you were. You can start again. I remember a time when I was holding on to anger. It felt justified, even righteous. But over time, it started to poison my peace. Every time I thought of that person, my body tightened, my chest ached. One day, I realized the anger wasn't protecting me anymore. It was trapping me. So I sat quietly, breathed deeply, and said aloud, I release you. I release me. The words felt strange at first, almost too simple. But afterward, something inside me softened. It was like setting down a bag I didn't know I'd been carrying for years. Maybe you felt that too, the exhaustion of holding too much. The truth is, peace doesn't come from fixing everything. It comes from loosening your grip. It's okay if you don't know how to let go right away. Sometimes, letting go starts with just wanting to, with whispering, maybe I don't need to hold this anymore. Try this the next time you feel that heaviness rise in your chest. Close your eyes. Take a deep breath in. As you exhale, imagine releasing just one small piece of what's weighing you down. You don't have to let it all go at once. You just have to start. One breath, one thought, one memory at a time. And remember, letting go doesn't mean forgetting. It means remembering without the sting. It means looking back with softness instead of pain. It means your past no longer owns your peace. If tonight, before bed, you feel the weight of old memories pressing on your heart, whisper to yourself, I've carried you long enough. Thank you for what you taught me. But it's time to put you down. Then take a breath and rest in that lightness, because you deserve to feel free. And if these words found a small space in your heart, if you felt that quiet pull to release and heal, then stay with me. Subscribe if you haven't yet. Every week, we share reflections like this. Soft reminders that it's okay to let go, that it's safe to begin again, and that peace is always waiting when your hands are finally empty. There are seasons in life when nothing makes sense. You try, you plan, you hope, and yet everything seems to fall apart anyway. The road bends in ways you didn't expect. The people you count on drift away, and suddenly you're standing in a place that feels unfamiliar. Maybe you whisper to yourself, why is this happening? Maybe you felt that quiet ache of not knowing what comes next. But what if, just for a moment, you trusted that the flow of life was still carrying you exactly where you need to go? If you've ever felt lost in the uncertainty, stay with me. Take a breath. And if you haven't yet, subscribe so we can walk this path together, one gentle truth at a time. There's an old saying in Zen, let go, or be dragged. It sounds simple, almost too simple, until life forces you to learn what it really means. We spend so much time trying to control what happens to us, trying to fix, to predict, to plan every detail. But life doesn't always follow our plans. It unfolds on its own time, in its own way. And sometimes, the more we try to fight the current, the more exhausted we become. I remember a time when everything I had built started to fall apart. The plans I had, the people I loved, the dreams I was chasing. It all began to shift like sand slipping through my fingers. I tried to hold on tighter, but the harder I held, the more life resisted. Until one day, I just stopped fighting. I sat quietly and whispered, maybe this isn't falling apart. Maybe it's just changing form. And something inside me softened. That's what trust feels like, not blind faith, but quiet surrender. A gentle knowing that even when things don't go as planned, something larger than you is still guiding your path. The river doesn't question why it bends. It just flows. It doesn't demand to know where it ends. It just moves, trusting that it will find the sea. Maybe life works the same way. Maybe every delay, every heartbreak, every loss isn't a punishment. It's a redirection. Sometimes life removes what we thought we wanted to make room for what we truly need. We just don't see it until later, when we look back and realize the detour was away all along. Buddhist wisdom teaches us about impermanence, the understanding that everything changes. Nothing stays the same. And that's not something to fear, it's something to trust, because it means no pain lasts forever. No storm stays unbroken. The same way spring always follows winter, joy always finds its way back. There's a calm that comes when you stop needing to know all the answers, when you stop demanding that life makes sense before you allow yourself to breathe. Maybe peace begins when we accept that uncertainty isn't a problem to solve. It's a space to live in. It's where growth happens, where our souls stretch and soften. When I started meditating, I thought stillness meant having no thoughts, no emotions, just silence. But real stillness, I've learned, is the ability to sit inside the chaos and still say, I trust. It's choosing to believe that even when life feels uncertain, you are still being carried. Try this with me. Sit quietly. Feel your breath move in and out. Imagine life as a river and yourself as a leaf resting on its surface. You don't need to paddle or push, just float. Let the current take you. Notice how it holds you without asking anything in return. That's trust. Maybe the things that didn't work out were never meant to hold you forever. Maybe the endings were simply doors opening to something softer, something freer. Sometimes, what looks like loss is really life clearing space for peace. If you're in a season of not knowing, I want you to remember this. It's okay not to have everything figured out. It's okay to take small steps, to pause, to breathe. Life isn't waiting for you to be perfect. It's inviting you to be present. So tonight, or whenever you find yourself awake with thoughts spinning in your mind, whisper gently, I trust the flow. Even if you don't fully believe it yet, say it anyway. The heart understands what the mind cannot. And if these words bring you a little calm, if you feel that small shift inside your chest, stay here with me. Subscribe if you haven't. Together, we'll keep learning how to float through life instead of fighting it, how to find peace not in the answers, but in the gentle rhythm of the unknown. Because maybe, just maybe, the river of life has always known exactly where it's taking you. You know those days when everything just feels too loud? When the phone keeps buzzing, the news feels heavy, your thoughts won't stop racing, and all you want is a moment of quiet that never seems to come. I've been there too. Sometimes it feels like life has turned into a storm you didn't ask to stand in. But here's a little secret. Peace isn't somewhere far away. It's not hiding in a quiet cabin or a distant mountain. It's right here inside you, waiting for you to stop running long enough to listen. If that speaks to you, if you're craving a breath of calm in the middle of all the noise, stay with me. Take a deep breath. And if you haven't yet, subscribe so we can keep finding stillness together, one heartbeat at a time. There's a story I once heard about a man who asked a monk, "Master, how can I find peace when the world is in chaos?" The monk smiled, poured a cup of tea, and said nothing. He just poured, slowly, carefully, until the cup was full. Then he kept pouring until tea spilled over the table. The man jumped back, startled. "Why are you still pouring?" he asked. The monk looked up and said softly, "You are like this cup, too full. How can peace enter when you're already overflowing?" That image stayed with me, because isn't that what most of us do? We fill ourselves with too much, too many worries, too many opinions, too many things we can't control, and then we wonder why we can't find peace. But stillness doesn't come from adding more. It comes from emptying a little. When life feels chaotic, our first instinct is usually to fix everything. We try to solve every problem, answer every message, calm every storm. But sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is stop trying. Sit still, breathe, and let the noise move around you without letting it move through you. The Buddha once said, "You can't calm the storm, but you can calm yourself. The storm will pass." I used to think that meant waiting for life to get better, but it's deeper than that. It means learning how to stay grounded while the storm is still raging. Because peace isn't about the absence of noise. It's about the presence of balance. Maybe that balance starts with something simple, like noticing your breath. Just that. Feel the air as it enters, cool and gentle. Feel it leave, soft and slow. You don't have to do anything else. Just breathe. The world might still spin, problems might still exist, but in that moment, you remember that you're okay. You're still here. You're still breathing. And somehow that's enough. Sometimes when I sit quietly, I can hear my heart beating. Not just the sound of it, but the rhythm, the steady reminder that even when everything around me feels uncertain, something inside me still knows what to do. The heart doesn't panic. It doesn't rush. It just beats. Calmly, faithfully, moment by moment. Maybe peace is learning to live like that. Steady, grounded, not trying to control, just allowing life to unfold. We think stillness means escaping the world, but maybe it means engaging with it differently. You could be standing in the middle of a busy street, surrounded by people, and still feel calm inside. Because peace isn't about where you are. It's about where your attention lives. Try this the next time life feels too heavy. Close your eyes for just 30 seconds. Let the sounds around you happen, the traffic, the voices, the chaos. Don't fight them. Don't label them as bad. Just let them be. And in that acceptance, notice how your body begins to soften. You don't have to shut the world out to find peace. You just have to stop letting it take over your inner world. And maybe, as strange as it sounds, the chaos itself can become your teacher. Every stressful moment is an invitation to practice calm. Every loud space is a chance to listen deeper. Every challenge whispers, "Come home to yourself." When the world feels too loud, imagine a candle flame inside you, small, steady, glowing. No matter how strong the wind blows, the flame stays alive. That's your stillness. That's your center. You might bend, you might flicker, but you don't go out. So tonight, when you lie down to rest, Let the noise of the day fade into background. Feel your breath. Feel your heartbeat. And remind yourself, peace isn't something I need to find. It's something I already have. And if these words brought you even a moment of quiet, if you felt that soft calm returning to your chest, then stay here with me. Subscribe if you haven't yet. Each week, we share these quiet reminders that even in chaos, you can be still. Because maybe peace doesn't come after the storm. Maybe peace is learning to stand in the rain and still feel the warmth of your own light. Have you ever noticed how fear has a way of showing up just when things start to feel good? You get a little closer to happiness, and suddenly your mind whispers, what if it all falls apart? Maybe you felt that, wanting to move forward, but finding yourself stuck in the same place, afraid of what might happen if you take the next step. I've been there too. But what if fear isn't something we have to fight? What if it's just a visitor, a messenger, not a master? If that idea feels like something your heart needs to hear today, stay with me. Let's breathe through this together. And if these quiet talks bring you comfort, subscribe so you don't have to walk this path alone. There was once a young monk who was terrified of crossing a river. The current was strong, and every time he stood by the water's edge, his mind filled with all the things that could go wrong. One day, his teacher handed him a small cup of water and said, "This is your fear. Carry it with both hands." The monk did. He held that cup so tightly, afraid to spill it, watching every step he took. Finally, the teacher said, "Now put the cup down." The monk hesitated, confused. "But if I drop it, won't I lose it?" The teacher smiled gently. That's the point. Fear only controls you when you keep carrying it. That story touched me deeply because I realized I've been carrying my own little cup of fear for years. Afraid of losing people. Afraid of failing. Afraid of not being enough. I held it so close that I forgot what it felt like to walk freely. Maybe you've done that too, holding on so tightly to fear that it becomes part of your identity. But the truth is, fear is just a story our mind tells to keep us safe. It's not the enemy. It's just a signal that says, hey, something here matters to you. When we see fear that way, we stop fighting it. We start listening. Because maybe fear is not asking us to run. It's asking us to pay attention. I remember when I decided to start something new in my life, something I'd always dreamed of. My heart said yes, but fear screamed louder. What if you fail? What if they laugh? What if it's too late? But somewhere deep down, a quieter voice whispered back, what if it works? What if it changes you? What if this is the thing your soul has been waiting for? And that whisper, that tiny voice of hope, is always there, beneath the noise. The Buddha once said, the whole secret of existence is to have no fear. But that doesn't mean we'll never feel afraid. It means we stop letting fear decide who we are. Fear loses its power when you look at it directly. Try this. The next time you feel that knot in your stomach or that voice saying you can't, just pause. Take a breath and say softly, I see you. No judgment, no resistance, just awareness. You'll notice something incredible happens. The fear softens. It stops being a wall and becomes a doorway. Fear thrives in the dark. But the moment you bring light to it, through awareness, through love, it starts to fade. Imagine you're holding that cup again. Instead of clinging to it, you set it down. You realize the river you were so afraid to cross isn't that deep after all. The current is strong, yes, but so are you. The truth is, courage isn't the absence of fear. Courage is the gentle decision to move anyway. Maybe you still tremble. Maybe your heart still races. That's okay. Move anyway. Because life doesn't wait for you to stop being afraid. It waits for you to start trusting yourself. There's a quiet kind of bravery that doesn't look like shouting or fighting. It looks like getting up in the morning when you'd rather hide. It looks like speaking from your heart, even when your voice shakes. It looks like loving again after being hurt. That's real courage, the kind that blooms quietly inside you when no one's watching. I think fear loses its grip the moment you begin to believe that no matter what happens, you'll be okay. Maybe not perfect, maybe not painless, but okay, because you've been through storms before, haven't you? And somehow, here you are, still standing, still breathing, still growing. So tonight, if fear sits beside you, don't push it away. Offer a seat. Listen for a moment. Then, when you're ready, say gently, "Thank you for trying to protect me, but I'm ready to walk now." You see, peace isn't about never feeling afraid. It's about learning to hold fear with kindness until it lets go. And when it does, you realize something beautiful. The freedom you've been chasing was never out there. It was always within you, waiting for the moment you stop running. So if this message spoke to you, if you felt a little lighter, a little braver, then stay with me. Subscribe so we can keep walking this path of calm and courage together. Because maybe life isn't about being fearless. Maybe it's about learning to live with an open heart, even when it trembles. Have you ever noticed how your whole day can shift because of one small moment of gratitude? Maybe it's the sound of birds in the morning, a stranger's smile, or that warm cup of coffee in your hands. Something tiny. Yet somehow your heart softens, your mind quiets, and for a brief second, everything feels okay. Gratitude does that. It changes nothing and yet changes everything. It doesn't erase pain, but it helps you see life through gentler eyes. So if you've been feeling heavy lately, stay with me for a while. Let's breathe together and talk about how gratitude can quietly heal your heart. And if you find peace in these moments, I'd love for you to subscribe so we can keep walking this path side by side. I remember once sitting with an old monk who had very little, just a robe, a wooden bowl, and that peaceful smile that never seemed to fade. One day I asked him, "How can you be so content when you have so little?" He laughed softly and said, "Because I see how much I already have." He picked up his bowl and said, "When it's empty, I'm grateful for the space it gives. When it's full, I'm grateful for what it holds." Either way, there's something to thank life for. That moment stayed with me. It made me realize that gratitude isn't about getting more. It's about seeing more. Maybe that's what we forget sometimes. We get caught up in what's missing, in what's not perfect yet. We tell ourselves, "I'll be happy when I have more money, when I'm healthier, when someone finally understands me." But life doesn't wait for those perfect moments. It gives us small ones, ordinary, fleeting moments that whisper, "I'm here, you're alive, this is enough." Gratitude, when it's real, doesn't deny pain. It sits beside it. It says, "Yes, things are hard, but there's still beauty here." You can have grief and still find reasons to smile. You can carry sadness and still notice the sky changing colors at sunset. Maybe the art of gratitude is learning to hold both, pain in one hand, appreciation in the other, and still move forward with grace. There was a time in my life when everything felt like it was falling apart. Nothing seemed to go right. I was angry, restless, tired of pretending I was fine. One evening, I sat alone and, without thinking, I whispered, "Thank you." I didn't even know who I was talking to or what I was thankful for, but that small act cracked something open. It was like a breath of air after being underwater too long. I realized gratitude doesn't need a reason. Sometimes it's just a choice to see light even in the dark. Maybe today you can try something simple. Before you go to bed, think of one thing that made you feel just a little bit okay. It could be the way your pet looked at you, the sound of rain, or even the quiet relief of being done with a long day. Just one thing. Say thank you for it. Not out loud if you don't want to, just in your heart. Because every thank you is like planting a seed. And the more you plant, the more beauty grows in the soil of your life. The Buddha once said, "Let us rise up and be thankful, for we didn't learn much today. At least we learned a little." Gratitude is not something to reach for. It's something we return to. It reminds us that even when life is uncertain, even when the path is rough, there are still moments of grace waiting quietly along the way. And maybe gratitude isn't about counting what we have. It's about noticing what we never lost, like love, kindness, hope, and the ability to begin again. So tonight, take a deep breath. Feel the rhythm of your heart. That's life moving through you, quietly, faithfully. It's another moment to be grateful for. If this message warmed your heart even a little, I invite you to stay, subscribe, and let's keep finding the light in simple things together. Because gratitude isn't about grand gestures. It's about soft eyes, open hearts, and the quiet courage to say, this moment right here is enough. Have you ever held on to something long after it was time to let it go? Maybe it was a person, a dream, or a version of yourself you thought you had to keep alive. You tell yourself it's okay. You just need more time, more understanding, more closure. But deep down, a quiet voice whispers, you're carrying something that's already gone. Letting go isn't easy. It never is. But maybe it's not about forgetting or giving up. Maybe it's about freeing your hands so you can finally receive what life wants to give you next. If that speaks to something inside you, stay here for a few minutes. Let's breathe through this together. And if you find comfort in these soft talks, subscribe so we can keep walking gently to the lessons life brings. There's a story I once heard about a monk who carried a woman across a muddy river. It was against his vows to touch a woman, but she needed help. So he lifted her, carried her across, and set her down safely. Hours later, his companion, another monk, finally spoke up. Brother, he said, you broke your vow. You touched her. The first monk smiled and replied, I set her down hours ago. Why are you still carrying her? That story always makes me pause. Because, truthfully, most of us carry people in moments long after they've ended. We replay conversations that won't change. We hold on to apologies that never came. We cling to versions of ourselves that no longer fit. And while the world moves forward, we stay stuck, holding ghosts of what used to be. Letting go isn't a single act. It's a slow unfolding. It's waking up one day and realizing the pain has softened just a little. It's hearing their name and no longer feeling that sharp pull in your chest. It's remembering the past, but with peace instead of ache. Sometimes, it's just accepting that closure might never come the way you wanted it to. And that's okay, because life doesn't always give us neat endings. It gives us growth instead. The Buddha taught that everything in this world is impermanent. Every joy, every pain, every breath. It all comes and goes like waves touching the shore. And the more we resist that truth, the more we suffer. But when we learn to move with life instead of against it, something shifts. We stop grasping. We start trusting. I used to think letting go meant losing something. Now I see it's the opposite. It's making space for peace. When you release what no longer serves you, you don't become empty, you become open. And in that openness, life finds you again. New friendships, new love, new strength you didn't know you had. Maybe you're holding on to someone who's already gone. Maybe you're clinging to guilt or an old mistake or the version of yourself that existed before the world changed you. It's okay. You don't have to let go all at once. Just loosen your grip, breath by breath. Imagine your hands slowly opening, your heart softening, your soul saying, I trust the timing of my life. Letting go doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you start caring for yourself too. It's choosing to stop reopening old wounds just to see if they still hurt. It's choosing to believe that some chapters end not because they failed, but because they fulfilled their purpose. When you finally let go, something beautiful happens. You begin to feel light again, not because the past disappears, but because it no longer controls you. The memories stay, but the heaviness fades. You start to move through your days with more ease, more grace, more presence. Sometimes we're afraid to release because we think it means forgetting. But letting go isn't about erasing. It's about releasing the hold pain has on your heart. It's about remembering with love instead of longing. So tonight, as you rest, think about what you've been holding on to. Ask yourself gently, is it still helping me grow, or is it time to set it down? Don't rush the answer. Just ask, because healing often begins the moment we're brave enough to question what we're still carrying. If this message found its way to you for a reason, stay a little longer. Subscribe so we can keep exploring these quiet truths together. Because maybe letting go isn't the end of your story. It's the beginning of peace finding its way back to you. There's a kind of pain that doesn't scream. It just lingers quietly in the heart. Maybe it's the memory of someone who hurt you, or the guilt of something you wish you'd done differently. You try to move on, but the wound stays, whispering every now and then, you haven't let this go yet. Forgiveness is one of the hardest lessons life gives us, not because we're weak, but because we care deeply. But here's the truth I've come to learn. Forgiveness isn't about the other person. It's about you. It's about setting yourself free from what no longer deserves to live inside you. So if your heart's been carrying something heavy, stay here for a few minutes. Let's talk softly about how forgiveness can be the peace you've been searching for. And if you feel something awaken as you listen, subscribe so we can keep healing together, one breath at a time. I remember a woman who once told me she had forgiven everyone in her life except one person, herself. She said, I can make peace with what others did to me, but not with what I did to them. Her words sank deep because I think many of us know that feeling. We carry guilt like a shadow, always behind us no matter how much light we walk toward. But the truth is, forgiveness doesn't mean pretending it never happened. It means choosing not to let the past define who you are today. There's an old Buddhist story about two monks walking through a muddy field. One accidentally steps on a small frog and feels deep regret. For days, he can't stop thinking about it. The other monk listens quietly and finally says, "The frog is gone, brother. The only thing suffering now is your mind." That story isn't about carelessness. It's about compassion. Because sometimes the person we need to forgive most is the one we see in the mirror. Forgiveness isn't quick. It doesn't happen in a single prayer or meditation. It's a slow untying of knots in the heart. It's waking up one morning and realizing the anger feels a little lighter. It's hearing their name and feeling peace instead of pain. It's seeing your own reflection and saying softly, I'm learning. I'm trying. I forgive you. Maybe there's someone you've been holding anger toward, a parent who didn't understand you, a friend who betrayed you, a love that broke your trust. You might think forgiveness means saying what they did was okay, but it doesn't. Forgiveness doesn't excuse what happened. It simply releases your soul from it. Because when you hold on to resentment, you're the one who keeps bleeding from a wound that could have healed long ago. I've learned that forgiveness is not a gift you get someone else. It's a gift you give yourself. It's a quiet decision to stop living in the story of pain. It's the moment you choose peace over pride. It's saying, I may never get the apology I deserve, but I still deserve peace. Sometimes, forgiving others is easier than forgiving yourself. We replay every mistake, every word, every choice we wish we could undo. But the truth is, you did the best you could with what you knew at the time. We all did. And maybe growing up, becoming wiser, doesn't mean judging our past selves. It means loving them enough to let them rest. When you finally forgive, something incredible happens. You don't forget, but the story changes. The pain becomes a teacher. The wound becomes wisdom. You begin to see that every person who hurt you was also lost in their own way. That doesn't make what they did right. It just makes it human. And when you understand that, your heart softens. Forgiveness is freedom. It's the feeling of walking barefoot on cool earth after years of carrying stones in your shoes. It's realizing that you don't need to win, to prove, or to punish. You just need to breathe, to release, to start again. Maybe tonight you can whisper a small prayer, not to forget, but to free yourself. Say quietly, I forgive you, and I forgive me. Even if you don't fully mean it yet, say it anyway. The heart learns through practice. Because one day, you'll wake up and realize the person who once hurt you no longer has power over your peace. And that moment, when you finally feel light again, that's what forgiveness is for. So if this message touched something in you, stay with me, subscribe, and let's keep walking together through the quiet work of healing. Because life isn't about never being hurt. It's about learning how to love again, even after you've been broken. Have you ever had a morning where everything was still? The light spilling softly through the window, the world just waking, and for a moment, nothing felt wrong? You weren't worrying about yesterday or planning tomorrow. You were simply there, breathing, being. That's peace. Not the kind that comes from fixing everything, but the kind that comes when you stop needing to. So if you've been tired, searching for calm in the noise of life, stay here with me for a while. Let's talk about how to live with peace and presence, not someday, but right here in this very moment. And if these quiet talks bring warmth to your heart, subscribe, so we can keep finding that stillness together, one breath at a time. I once heard someone say, peace doesn't mean having a life without noise. It means finding silence within the noise. And I think that's true. Life will never stop being messy. There will always be things undone, conversations unfinished, emotions you don't quite understand. But peace isn't found in perfection. It's found in presence. It's the soft strength of returning again and again to now. When the Buddha spoke of mindfulness, he wasn't asking us to become monks on a mountain. He was inviting us to come home to ourselves, to taste the tea while we drink it, to feel the ground beneath our feet as we walk, to listen, truly listen, to someone without waiting for our turn to speak. Peace isn't something we chase. It's something we notice when we finally stop running. I remember walking one morning, lost in thought, when I suddenly noticed the sound of leaves rustling in the wind. It wasn't a special day. Nothing extraordinary had happened, but for some reason, that sound felt sacred. It reminded me that life doesn't need to be different to be beautiful. It just needs to be seen. Maybe that's what peace really is. Seeing life clearly without all the noise we add to it. We often tell ourselves, when things calm down, I'll be happy. But have you noticed? Things rarely calm down. There's always another worry, another plan, another what if. The peace we're waiting for won't come from changing the world around us. It comes from changing how we meet it. Try this. When you wake up tomorrow, don't reach for your phone right away. Just sit for a moment. Feel your breath move in and out. Listen to the sounds around you. Notice how the morning light feels against your skin. That's presence. And in that presence, peace begins to bloom quietly, like a seed that's been waiting for the rain. Sometimes peace shows up in unexpected ways. In the laughter of a friend. In the softness of your pillow at night. In forgiving yourself for not getting everything done. In realizing that maybe you don't need to have all the answers. You just need to show up with love, again and again. There's a story about a student who asked his teacher, "What is enlightenment?" The teacher replied, "When hungry, eat. When tired, sleep." It sounds simple, almost too simple, but that's the point. Peace isn't something far away. It's hidden in the simplicity of being fully alive in this moment. Maybe peace is choosing not to rush, choosing not to argue with what is, choosing to breathe even when things feel uncertain. It's saying, I don't know what tomorrow holds, but for now, this is enough. And maybe that's all life is asking of us, to be here, to be kind, to be present. When you live with presence, even the smallest things start to shine. A conversation feels deeper. A walk feels lighter. You start to realize that life was never meant to be controlled. It was meant to be experienced. So tonight, before you sleep, try whispering softly, "Thank you." Not for what went perfectly, but for what simply was. For the laughter, for the lessons, for the breath still moving through you. Because peace isn't something you find. It's something you return to over and over until it becomes a rhythm of your life. And if these words brought you a little closer to that stillness inside, I'd love for you to stay. Subscribe, and let's keep building this gentle space together, where peace isn't a destination, but a way of living. Because maybe the most beautiful thing you can do is to live fully, love softly, and be completely here.